Hello students. So as you can see from the topic today which we are going to learn is lookist policy to actist policy, a transition. Okay. So first we have to know what is a lookist policy, because you know that foreign policy has various indices, and one of the most important policy which we have been overlooking since decade was the lookist policy. And in various exams like civil service exams, then in PG exams, you will find this lookist policy is very much in importance. So welcome to the channel. If you like the content of the video, do subscribe and like the content. So you can see that this is the map. Okay, so look east means what, you can see that the map of India, obviously. So I have little bit, like I have zoomed it so that you have can understand. So from the right-handed portion, you can see that India where it is written. So from the northeast India, we can connect to where? We can connect to the Southeast Asian countries. Whenever we talk about look east, it means what? It means we wanted to connect our land areas with, means our land areas means our connectivity or our foreign policy from the northeast to the look east portion, means New Delhi will be taking its decision, whereby from northeast part of India we will be having border relations via Myanmar to other parts of Southeast Asia. Okay, so let's see what is there in the lookist policy. See, first question is why lookist policy? In these things, what are the topics which we are going to discuss? What are the importance? Okay, first of all we have to know about the importance of lookist policy for India, means why this policy is very important, why we need a lookist, because we can opt other policies like south policy or like north policy. Why lookist policy is very lucrative, or why it is so important to India? What is India's attitude towards its neighboring states? So we have to know that what attitude does India have with other states, especially our neighboring countries. Okay, what impacts does other Southeast Asian states have upon India? We have to know that what do other Southeast Asian states? Other Southeast Asian states means Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, Philippines, and others. Okay, they think about India. Is lookist a practiced or a blueprint? Means does lookist is only a practice, like we will find that this is only a policy which is not going to happen in real, or is this a blueprint? So first thing, like lookist policy was formed in 1991. Okay, so our prior prime minister, that is the former prime minister, that is PV Narasimha Rao, along with Manmohan Singh, has first declared the policy of look east. Why look east? Because we cannot think of merging our country from the western part of India, because it is deadlocked by the presence of Pakistan. Okay, why Pakistan? Because we have strained relations, strained border relations with Pakistan, and since we have 4 wars till now with Pakistan, so it is not feasible or it is not possible for us to have an entry from Pakistan to Middle East to other parts of the states. Okay, so it is a viable connection that we can explore, because from the north also it is not possible as there is a presence of China, and we also know that the we have also fought a war with China in 1962. So probably there is only one passage which is going to connect us to other parts of the world, that is from northeastern part of India to the Southeast Asian countries. Okay, so the first country you have to answer me in comment, which country is sharing its Southeast Asian borders with India? There is only one country. Can you name it? Just think it. Yes. So the answer is it's Myanmar. Okay. So Myanmar, earlier it was named after Burma. So most importantly now, if India wants to expand its economy, see, we know that sea lines of communications or traveling via Indian Ocean, that's fine. Okay, but we also need to have a land border connections so that we can establish our country in terms of trade, economy, culture, as well as various aspects from where the country can benefit itself, because China has extended its economy to the worldwide. Okay, so India also has all potentialities and capabilities which can also move India with a accelerating space. Okay, if India follows the policy of Lucist, but this policy is not that easy, as there are various challenges. Now the challenges which comes from the Lucist perspective, first of all, India's neighbors. Okay, India has a very unstable neighboring states. Okay, because we know that the states like Myanmar, they are unstable because of the presence of various militant factions or militancy groups. Okay, so the various militancy groups which constitute of military junta. Okay, the military junta. So if we'll get a question like the military juntas belongs to which state, it is the state of Myanmar. Okay, then we'll have, like, since Myanmar is the sole gateway of Southeast Asia, so India has to do what, India has to make its northeastern states well equipped, well, well groomed up. Like groomed up in what sense? Like the roads, railways and other things has to be clearly developed, so that there can be a direct passage by which the visions of connecting to Southeast Asia can be envisaged. Okay, so then we know that India has, means what attitude does India have towards its Southeast Asian states? Obviously, we know that the SARC, when SARC was created, okay, SARC doesn't have much, like the SARC, when SARC was created, India always had a big brotherly attitude towards SARC members. So the attitude of other states is not very positive towards India, because India always maintained a big brotherly attitude, and which has affected the countries that if India is exceeding or expanding from Southeast Asia to Southeast Asia, then India might create a kind of dominance over the region, which is not true, obviously, but this kind of attitude has been created earlier. Okay, so we will also come that how India's attitude has changed in the recent years whenever we look into the actist, but you have to wait until I answer other questions. What is what impact does other states, the Southeast Asian states, have upon India? So this is very vital question, because we know that how China is a closed country means like China do not always give access to every part of the world. Okay, so and to trade with China means you have to welcome dominance. Okay, since you have to welcome dominance, and India is a guardian of democracy, like India is democratic state since its independence. Okay, so obviously if Southeast Asian states want to have trade with India, okay, so they are assured that India can benefit them economically. So they wanted to link India with their economies and gets the benefit out of India. Okay, as you know that India has a huge market base, and obviously we have taken the strategy of Make in India. Then we have also other business ventures, especially the farms, especially who are well equipped with the facilities, and especially the power generation, energy sector. And you will also find various banks who are catching up with the economic development of South Asia. So they are also expanding its territories so that they can also help other countries in growing together, in balancing the region, and without impacting any states and its behavior. Okay, so many states like Vietnam, recently Thailand, you have seen that they have made visa free. If you are very interested to travel to Thailand, Vietnam, so you don't have to pay for visa. Earlier it used to they used to charge 4 to 5 thousands of Indian rupee. Now you do not have to pay, because our present government has made initiative by which it has been a visa free state. Okay, so these are the things which you have to keep in mind. So the last point is Lucist policy a practice or a blueprint? So to be very specific, yes, Lucist was a plan. It was taken, it was an initiative by which we can establish ourselves, or we can create a path by which India can link its economy, culture, and other political, aspects to other Southeast Asian states. Okay, because if India has a venture to spread its wings to the far east, linking Australia, okay, for like for far eastern states, and then connecting Australia to and entering what we say today as Indo-Pacific. So India has to make a road, and this road is not obviously this is not so easy, because there are factors like China who would not make these things happen. Because if China, because if India expands its territory, it would be grabbing the markets of South Asia, because India believes in the idea of its quality. So you know that, so China, since it is a market leader of this country, so it will not well see India as a factor challenging them economically. Okay, so India has various challenges. So the especially the instability in Myanmar is also a crisis, which at present we can see and we can feel, which China has already has created over the state, so that it can access its resources like the natural resources, since Myanmar is very resource rich in terms of its like resources like the natural gas or whatever minerals, timber, whatever other resources are having. So you have to understand that these things are very vital for explaining the indices of Southeast Asia. So it is merely a blueprint which was created. Okay, so the most important part, why we see a transition or a bridge between the lookist to the actist, what actist is. Okay, so what is actist policy? So the lookist, we know that this is very important to look towards our eastern neighbors, but now it's time to act towards them. Okay, why it is time to act towards them? Because with the coming up of BJP government in power, that is Bharatiya Janata Party in power, the initiative of acting towards India's neighbor through Southeast Asia has been initiated with the neighborhood first policy, and it has been advocated by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the time. Okay, because Southeast Asia has a very important positioning in placing India's foreign policy in line. Okay, so you have to understand that Southeast Asia plays a very important role, and you know that the Asian tigers means which are the countries which are known as Asian tigers, especially Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. They are named after Asian tigers. So obviously you can see the GDP of the three, that like it is some trillion. Like, okay, so they are like Singapore is a first world country, obviously, and just a thing that an Asian country can be a first world. Obviously, there is also Japan, but so it was a major initiative which was basically taken into consideration while considering the policy of actist. So first thing, actist policy and its evolution. So actist policy was first coined in 2014 after the government has formed its power, but here we can see that a clear imperative has drawn. Okay, on the basis of which how can we activate the concept of actist. Okay, how can we really act to our Southeast Asian neighbors? Then we'll see the goals of actist policy. Obviously we know that the first and foremost goal is like India is a century old civilization. We have our history dated back to 5000 years back, but what is important here is like how we can re-establish these connections after so many years, because India had its independence in 1947 from its colonial yoke. So many countries which comes under the legacy of this colonial powers, so they are now independent. So it is vital for India to have a first hold impression to launch its economic activities and to collect and to connect them politically. So, the first vantage point which places into the goals of actist policy is like presenting a blueprint towards them, and what help can India do to its neighboring states. So we have to look into those things. Okay, so India's, then we will see that India's neighborhood first, obviously, like we do not believe in the concept called bigger thigh neighbor. Bigger thigh neighbor means like we will make our neighbors is bigger, okay, which has been the concept of various countries like China, US, and others. Okay, so bigger Thai neighbor means like we will be affecting, we will be looting or grabbing the resources of our neighbors. We do not believe in this policy. India as a country, India as a power, South Asian power, India is seen as an icon. Okay, so India now prioritizes its neighbor first. Prioritizes its neighbor first means India will connect and India will talk about all forms of dimensions of development which we can help our neighboring states to be. Okay, we will help our neighboring states in the sense like we will be building its economic institutions, we will be helping, aiding in the terms at the time of natural calamity. Suppose India had helped Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar during COVID by supplying huge range of oxygen cylinders as well as other medications, so that these countries do not face the issues and they can overcome the pandemic very easily. Okay, so obviously this is the attitude of India which has been changed. Like when I was talking about Lookist policy, you know that India has a big brotherly attitude. Now India has uh, changed its attitude to a partner. Okay, the partnership is will be like where we will be supporting our partners in form of state. Challenges of activist policy. Now, by looking the policy itself, you know that it is very easy and it is so soothing for the countries of Southeast Asia. But thing is, there are various barriers which comes in the way of activist policy, because we obviously know that the relations India we have with our neighboring states like Myanmar, which is a gateway to Southeast Asia, is not very convincing or not very good. So obviously when India do not have a very good relations with its neighbor, so it is not possible to have a direct entry point from Myanmar to other parts of Southeast Asia. So in that case, Myanmar is also known as a de facto state which is controlled or remotely accessed by China, because China has all its dream to conquer Asia and be an Asian leader. So China's string of pearl as a strategy or it's not a policy, it's a strategy, is well seen. So it is a big challenge for India how India can convince Myanmar as a neighbor, and then it can delve into like extending the bridges towards other Southeast Asian states. Okay, so you have to calibrate into the decisions of like what challenges it may impose to the, because you have known that in 2021 the Aung San Suu Kyi government, which was basically there and running a democratic form of government since 2011, the government has ceased to exist, and Aung San Suu Kyi, who was the prime minister of Myanmar, has been taken into house arrest by the military junta. So obviously, its unstable thing has been unstable political, uh, you know, political instability can be fetched and seen in Myanmar. So India has recently also decided to create various, like like not now, but before a few years, India has extended its Mekong Ganga cooperation. Okay, various policies. Then there were an important port like the Sitwi. Okay, Sitwi, Sitwi project or port, and the Kaladan multi-model project was also created. It was a seaport which would connect from Myanmar to Kolkata. Okay, so 163-kilometer stretch which will reach directly to Myanmar to Kolkata via Indian Ocean, and we know that this was via Bay of Bengal. So this was very important for India for accelerating its pace, for accelerating its pace into Southeast Asia, but it was thwarted. It is paused just because the presence of the strained attitude of Myanmar and its political instability has contributed in seizing the activities. Okay, so Indian many large firms has also like Indian Oil and Corporation Videsh Limited, okay, NTPC and other organizations like public sector undertakings have played a crucial role in developing Myanmar's economy. But now, since the government is at brink just because of the other factors. So India is not able to take any risk of extending its policy of Southeast Asia. Okay, so Southeast Asia and Southeast Asia and India. Lastly, we see that Southeast Asia is very important to India, as India has a plan of extending itself to the Asia Pacific. Okay, by extending itself from Southeast Asia to Far East, and then to reaching to Australia, and then to other parts like Netherlands, and then to the Pacific, as we know. Okay, so this impetus of economic growth is highly seen as a strategy which has to be boosted over time and with a convincing attitude of the government. But these things needed to be nurtured more diplomatically and taking India's national interest in count. Obviously, China is a factor which is affecting the foreign policy of the state, but essentially, we have to keep in mind that the region is itself and economically or strategically important. India has to calibrate its geopolitical indices so that the policies are framed and tasked in favor of India, and India can also develop its century old visions like implementing tourism, because the region is like especially Myanmar, Cambodia, Indonesia, where Buddhism plays an important role. The idea of pilgrimage can also be fostered, and the pilgrimage can also be, or tourism can also be implanted. So these are the things which we have to keep in mind. So I think this is sufficient for explaining what is an activist policy. Hope this lecture is beneficial to you. Thanks for watching. If you like, so you know what to do. I won't say anything. Thank you so much for watching this video.